All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to talk about one of humanity's most epic stories, the quest to conquer the skies. So, let's start with a big question. Just how long did it take us as a species to finally fly?
Well, the answer is kind of staggering. We're talking about a gap of nearly 3,000 years between the very first man-made objects that flew and the first real, controlled airplane. It's this incredible journey of myths, sheer guts, science, and, finally, triumph.
So, for most of human history, right, flying was it was the stuff of legends and myths. But that didn't stop some really brave, maybe slightly crazy individuals from giving it a shot. These early attempts, they were all over the place, totally disconnected, but they all had that same daring ambition. We're talking about the first kites in ancient China. Then fast forward to a documented parachute jump in Spain. There was even an English monk who just leaped from his abbey. He only broke his legs, thankfully. And you've got Marco Polo reporting seeing men literally being carried into the sky by giant kites. The desire was definitely there. Okay, but pure courage, as amazing as it is, can only get you so far, right? For flight to actually become a real thing, that raw ambition had to merge with science. It was time to actually crack the code of the sky. And the person who first really cracked that code? An English engineer named George Cayley. Now, he's not a household name like the Wright brothers, but let me tell you, without him, they might never have even gotten off the ground.
I mean, get this. All the way back in 1799, Cayley figured out the three fundamental principles for a modern airplane. He said you need fixed wings for lift, a fuselage for the body, and a tail for control. That's basically every plane flying today. He invented the airplane on paper a whole century before it actually flew. It's just incredible.
And Cayley wasn't just a theorist, oh no. Decades later, in 1849, his glider actually carried a young boy. Some say it was his servant's son on the very first manned glider flight. This was a huge deal. The first time a person ever flew in a machine that was heavier than the air around it. So with that code basically cracked, the 19th century just exploded. It became this frenzy of experimentation. You had inventors all over the world racing to build on what Cayley had started. And you can see the pieces of the puzzle starting to come together. In 1852, you've got Henri Giffard, who pulls off the first controlled flight in a powered airship. So people were finally figuring out how to steer in the sky.
And then you get these absolutely crucial tools, like Francis Wyndham's wind tunnel. This was a game changer. It let people actually test aerodynamics with real science, moving way past just guesswork and into hard data.
All this new knowledge led to the first powered hops. In 1874, Félix du Tempel's machine managed to lift a person a few feet off a ramp. It was a massive moment, for sure, but it wasn't really flying yet. Then Clemenator does it again in 1890, this time from level ground. But you're starting to see the pattern here, right? They could get airborne, but they couldn't stay airborne. That whole sustained, controlled flight thing, that was still the final unsolved piece of the puzzle. And this relentless pursuit, it came at a really high price. The great German glider pioneer Otto Lilienthal, this guy made hundreds of successful glides, but in 1896, his glider stalled and he crashed. His famous last words, "Sacrifices must be made," just tragically capture the spirit of this whole dangerous quest. But Lilienthal's sacrifice wasn't in vain. In fact, it directly inspired two bicycle mechanics from Ohio, and they were the ones who would finally put all the pieces together. You see, the genius of the Wright brothers was their methodical approach. They weren't just tinkering. They studied everything that came before them, especially Lilienthal's data. Then they did their own super rigorous glider tests, invented a totally revolutionary system for control, and finally put it all together at Kitty Hawk. And so, on December 17th, 1903, that moment finally arrived. The very first flight. It lasted just 12 seconds. It only traveled 121 feet. To put that in perspective for you, that is shorter than the wingspan of a modern jumbo jet. It's tiny.
By pretty much any measure, it was just this tiny, fleeting moment. Just one single flight.
But it was the one that changed the world forever. So here's the absolutely crucial point. Others had hopped into the air, sure, but the Wrights were the first to achieve both controlled and sustained flight. They took off, they actually flew, and they landed safely, all while the pilot was in command. That was the real breakthrough.
And that tiny 12-second flight on a windy beach in North Carolina, well, it unlocked the entire future of aviation.
Their success wasn't some kind of miracle. It was the final piece, the capstone on centuries of dreaming, thousands of years of raw ambition, and all that meticulous science and sacrifice from pioneers like Cayley and Lilienthal.
So this incredible, almost 3,000-year journey from a simple kite to a controlled airplane, it leaves you with one last thought, doesn't it? After conquering the skies, what's the next impossible quest we're on today?